Deep in the heart of Lemoyne, west of Blue Water Marsh, lies the abandoned town of Pleasance, a small settlement containing 6 structures, including a schoolhouse, a church, a barn, 2 homes, a storage shack, plus a cemetery. Litter strewn about indicates that it's been some time since this place was inhabited, but why? I covered this topic a few years back on this channel, but after re-exploring the subject and uncovering new information, I believe we have enough new evidence to warrant a revisit, so today that's what we're going to be looking at. Welcome to the video. You're listening to Phil of Philby Gaming. If you enjoy the following, you all know what to do, and if you're new to the channel and haven't subscribed already, after watching, please consider doing so, as well as sharing with those you feel would enjoy content such as this. And without further delay, let's continue with today's video. The abandoned town of Pleasance revisited. Upon entry to the small town, we're greeted with a welcome sign informing us that Pleasance was founded in August of 1883, 16 years prior to the tale of Red Dead Redemption 2. The date is relevant to our studies and it's something we'll come back to. As mentioned, there are 6 structures in total, so in order to figure out exactly what happened, we need to inspect each one to piece together this story, beginning with the small home to the left of the entrance. Upon inspection, we can see that all the windows are either boarded up or have the curtains drawn, disallowing us sight inside. The front door is also locked too. The leaves atop the roof further indicate that it's been quite a while since anyone has lived here, or more specifically, kept on top of the chores. But aside from our inability to access the property and the unkempt nature, there's nothing else noteworthy about this first building, so let's move on over to the next, where things definitely become a little more interesting. The barn. The most predominant and noticeable feature of the barn is the big white painted warning on the doors, "Stay out, plague." This is obviously our first clue as to what happened to this small holding. Either that, or it's a clear reference to The Walking Dead. Similar to the first home, the barn is also inaccessible, as it's both locked and boarded up, but something to take note of around the back is the sack of sugar sent by the company owned and operated by one Leviticus Cornwall, something we'll come back to. Aside from some provisions and a cigarette card, there's nothing else to take note of at the barn, but there is something interesting just a few feet away, the town's water supply in the form of a well. As we can see, it's been closed over tight, preventing anyone from access. This may have been the source of the apparent plague. Further along, we have the settlement's church at the centre of it all. Just as the other structures, this too is both boarded up and locked tight. But atop the spire is the weather vane, and the direction it's indicating is to the west. Although at first glance this may seem insignificant, it plays a much larger part, which we'll discuss a little later in the video. Continuing to the eastern side of Pleasance, we encounter the second home, and this one tells something of a story. It's the same situation as the others, being boarded up and locked tight, but sprawled across the home, not dissimilar to the barn, is graffiti. But it doesn't warn of a plague, it's more a condemnation of sorts. One reads, "Ill with sin," across the front door, and the other, across the face of the home, reads, "Unclean sinners." Across the front porch are bottles of what appear to be moonshine, as well as used provisions, but this may have potentially just been squatters or the scatterings of travellers resting up for the night. Across from the second home is a structure that is finally accessible, although still severely run down. Many of the wooded walls have rotted away, and there's a large tree that's collapsed and caved itself into the roof. There's a wooden cart outside that has suspicious red stained liquid on both the inside and out. Could this be bloodshed? Also, next to the cart, we have yet another clue pointing towards Leviticus Cornwall. There's one of his company's oil barrels, similar to the sack of sugar. There's not much else to notice outside of the building, so let's head inside. At first glance, we can see this was the school of Pleasance, indicated by the tables, chairs, and books and such, as well as the teacher's table facing the classroom. To the left, there's a bottle of fluid with the contents label explaining that it helps cure cholera. This coincides with the apparent plague. There's also scientific jars strewn about the place, fitting for a school. All of the drawers have been empty previously, which as we can imagine is probably down to looters. There's also a copy of a dime novel titled Otis Miller and the Boy from New York, but it isn't so much relevant to our investigation. Surrounding the rear shelves are further bottles of the cholera remedy, as well as more scientific jars. Upon closer inspection of said jars, using a little free camp trickery, we can see the contents. In some there are scorpions, and in others there are snakes. Are these simple school experiments, or is there something more sinister at hand? Having exhausted all of our search, it's time to move on over to the final building, a shack of sorts. For whatever reason, this structure has been burned to the ground, which may indicate arson, something we'll come back to towards the end of the video, but aside from the obvious damage and a case of revolver cartridges, there's nothing else noteworthy. There's one thing we have yet to look at Pleasance, and that's the graveyard. This is where things begin to unravel. There are 10 graves in total, which isn't out of the ordinary, but what is peculiar are the dates in which each person passed, as well as the manner they passed in. Edmund Tobin, killed by gunshot, September 1883. Curtis Baines, murdered, September 1883. Daniel Curley had his life taken, September 17, 1883. Amelia Curley died of a gunshot to the head, September 1883. Asa Horson, found murdered, September 1883. Jimmy Horson, killed by knife wound, September 17, 1883, and a family of 4, the Yeatmans, Leora, Reginald, and their children Glenn and Jesse, all perished in September of 1883 to violence, just the same as the rest of those buried. Clearly, this was mass murder committed by someone, but who and why? Referring back to the welcoming sign, we learn that it was only 1 month between the creation of Pleasance and the killings. Did someone not want these folks as neighbours? A little off the track is something very interesting. In the wooded trees, the player can uncover a giant snake wrapped around a tree. Depending on the culture, a giant snake can represent evil and deception, as well as destruction and chaos. Pairing that with the snake jars found in the schoolhouse, as well as the scribblings of sinners at the home, this is beginning to look like the works of cultists, someone worshipping a darker power. Whilst continuing with the theme of dark forces, let's get back to the weather vane upon a spire of the church. It's pointing in a westwardly direction, but not only that, look at the shape. This is relevant. If we travel way out west near Lake Owanjila, we can uncover the pagan ritual site, a location used to make human sacrifices to the gods. But how does this connect, other than it being in the western direction of the weather vane? Look at the mount to the rear of the site. The design is almost identical to that of the weather vane, indicating a connection. And look at the structure of the design. It's taken inspiration from ritualistic designing. Was Pleasance the victim of mass sacrifice? Was this poor guy one of the settlers? The design appears to indicate a human at the top, the victim, an isosceles shape in the centre, potentially the church, and lastly the shape of a serpent. Is there a connection there, or are we just diving deeper into the unknown? Let's look at some other possibilities. This could have been the work of a local gang, such as the Lemoyne Raiders. It's certainly their way. They don't seem to appreciate advancement, which is explained by their inability to walk away from a war that ended decades prior. Did they stumble upon a new settlement and didn't want the region to advance? Did they take drastic action to ensure all townsfolk were slain? A lot of people will also be looking to place the blame on oil tycoon Leviticus Cornwall due to his supplies being strewn around Pleasance, knowing what a heartless character he actually is. Did this new settlement not adhere to his wishes? Did he have them killed to teach a lesson? This is also referenced by the burned shack. After all, Cornwall is also suspected of destroying the town of Limpany in the same manner, although this is yet to be proven. One final theory is that this was the work of a lone person, although this may be somewhat stretching. To the rear of Shady Bell, there's a grave marked Agnes Dowd, with the inscription describing that she took her own life as well as others. But unfortunately for us, the dates, although very close, don't add up. Agnes perished on the 4th of September 1883, 13 days prior to the events of the Pleasance massacre, although we could also assume that the bodies weren't discovered until the 17th. Agnes was a young lady who fell pregnant to her partner, but he left her for another woman. Upon coming to his senses, he returned to Agnes, only for her father to slay him. Agnes became enraged, killing those that surrounded her. This was assumed to be her family, but some may speculate that it may have been the residents of Pleasance, due to her spectral appearing just the other side of the waters of the town. This location was where she would meet her partner, and was also her final resting place as she passed by herself hanging. One last, and probably the most plausible theory, is that following an outbreak of cholera, the town may have turned on itself as the residents feared infection. Did this result in the townsfolk waging war on one another out of fear, leading to the demise of 10 victims? We may never know. So let me know in the comment section what you think happened to the town of Pleasance. Was it Cornwall, a local gang, a satanic ritualistic sacrifice, the settlement turning on itself out of fear, or something more? Some may even speculate this was the work of the strange man, similar to what happened in Armadillo with their cholera outbreak. Did one of the Pleasance residents make a deal with the devil? If you enjoyed what you saw today, you all know what to do, and if you're new to the channel and haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so, as well as sharing with those you feel may enjoy content such as this. Thank you all for watching. You've been listening to Phil of Filmy Gaming, and I'll see you in the next video.